In an era of fantastic and futuristic aircraft, the North American Aviation XB-70 Valkyrie stood out as one of the most awe-inspiring. On June 8, 1966, this extraordinary aircraft led a photoshoot run with 4 other jets at the behest of General Electric. The company wanted to photograph a set of the planes that carried their engines. In the group, an F-104 was piloted by Joe Walker, a seasoned pilot. The XB-70 was flown by Al White, the chief test pilot for the program, with Air Force Major Carl Cross as the co-pilot. A Learjet piloted by Clay Lacy would carry photographers to capture the formation, which would be featured in a company brochure. However, a tragedy suddenly struck. The Valkyrie and the F-104 were involved in a shocking accident, documented and immortalized in these photographs. They're now part of American aviation history's long catalog of mysteries. The XB-70 Valkyrie was a deep-penetration strategic bomber, considered one of aviation's most significant technological achievements of the 20th century. Designed by North American Aviation, the 6-engine Valkyrie was capable of reaching a Mach 3 speed while flying above 70,000 feet, ready to outrun any Soviet fighter jet it encountered. In 1966, General Electric, manufacturer of the plane's YJ-93 turbojet engines, requested the presence of the XB-70 for a photoshoot run. The company wanted a photo of 5 aircraft powered by their handiwork. The picture would be used for the cover of their brochures to present at an upcoming shareholders meeting. It sounded like a simple mission, but this flight would end in tragedy for some of America's most recognized pilots. The night before the mission, the XB-70, along with the other planes that would be in the formation, underwent a series of pre-flight checks. Technicians and engineers were busy until the last minute, making sure the jets were in perfect condition. The fuel tanks were also full. The morning of June 8th was slightly overcast, but had otherwise perfect weather for flying. Airspeed calibration and sonic boom run tests were conducted with no problems. It wasn't a demanding mission, but it was ideal for Major Carl Cross, who had never been inside a Valkyrie before. He would co-pilot the XB-70 along with Al White, the chief test pilot for the Valkyrie program. The formation was led by the AV-2 XB-70, flanked on the left by Commander Jerome Skyred and E.J. Black in the U.S. Navy Phantom II. On the same flank was a T-38A Talon flown by Captain Peter Hogue, with pilot Joe Cotton in the rear seat. Off the Valkyrie's right wing was a NASA F-104 and Starfighter with Joe Walker aboard, and a YF-5A piloted by John Fritz. The Valkyrie was set to perform a series of flight tests and then meet up with the other aircraft over the ocean, just off the Santa Barbara coastline. The group flew in a racetrack pattern at 25,000 feet through the clouds for 30 minutes at 300 miles per hour. The formation of the planes had to change several times so the cameraman could take the pictures. On the final circuit lap, and only 3 minutes before the photographers were scheduled to leave, the crews were informed that a B-58A was approaching the formation at a higher altitude. Pilot Walker, flying his F-104 and Starfighter, couldn't see the approaching jet. While looking for it, he accidentally and inexplicably moved slightly closer to the Valkyrie, which then rose suddenly, so the Starfighter's horizontal stabilizer's tip touched the XB-70's wingtip. The Starfighter was further destabilized when it entered the XB-70's wingtip vortex. The plane passed across the Valkyrie's rear fuselage, taking off the right vertical stabilizer and most of the left one. The F-104 then cartwheeled and burst into flames. The XB-70 started a flat spin shortly after the collision. Fuel vapor spewed from it. Although the engines were still running, the aircraft did not catch fire. At first, the calls of mid-air didn't make sense to Pilot White, who had no idea what had happened. But when Pilot Cotton in the T-38A referred to, quote, 2 verticals came off left and right, it became apparent they were talking about the Valkyrie, since it was the only twin-fin jet in the pack. The Valkyrie flew for another 16 seconds before entering a slight rolling motion. White tried to correct his position, but balancing the huge aircraft was impossible without vertical stabilizers. The XB-70 started to do a snap roll, which then turned into an uncontrollable spiral descent, spilling more fuel from its damaged wing. No one had ejected from the plane by the time it lost 10,000 feet. Suddenly, Pilot Cotton shouted through the radio, quote, "There's a chute. I see one chute. Stay clear of that wing. One chute's going down." It was all captured on camera. The Valkyrie was burning from the tail section, with the flames now close to the jet's nose. Only 2 minutes after the mid-air impact, the aircraft crashed a few miles from Barstow, California. Pilot White's ejection capsule landed a few thousand feet away from the XB-70. Eventually, he recovered from severe injuries in a hospital. Sadly, Major Cross didn't make it out of the jet. Later, White recounted the tragic event he and Cross had gone through. After feeling the impact, his immediate reaction was to get his seat in the escape capsule. But when White tried to close the protective clamshell, a part of his arm was left out of the enclosure. If he ejected then, he would lose his arm. With the intercoms turned off, White and Cross had no way of communicating. Still, he could see Cross's helmet bobbing around as the plane spun out of control. There was no way he could help the co-pilot. After 80 seconds of effort, White managed to release his arm and ejected safely off the plane, with the capsule's doors partially open. His parachute was deployed immediately. He was safe, but Cross was not. White's capsule was severely damaged, but there was proof that he had pulled one of the ejection capsules. The official Air Force report of the tragic accident concluded that, given the position of both jets, the F-104 pilot wasn't able to see the Valkyrie's wing unless he looked back over his left shoulder in an uncomfortable position. The starfighter was estimated to be 70 feet to the side of the Valkyrie's fuselage and 10 feet below it. With the jets in a complicated position and without proper sight cues, Walker could not accurately perceive his movements in relation to the Valkyrie, which led to him drifting his aircraft into the XB-70's wing. The investigation also pointed to the wake vortex from the right wingtip of the XB-70 as the cause for the F-104's sudden rollover. Whatever the accident's cause was, a fun and simple mission for General Electric quickly turned into the tragic loss of 2 beloved veteran pilots, all for a corporate brochure.